I would first of all like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to speaking to you today for this keynote address. And I must admit it is not easy after such a passionate overview of the pressing political questions in this country and in Europe at this moment to come back to the day-to-day business of the European aspect of our shipping industry. But I'm here today to talk to you about the strategic importance of shipping to the European Union's economy and the contribution that shipping makes to society and the challenges that we have to face. And there may be the bridge to what we have heard just now when we heard the outline of the importance of Greek shipping to the Greek national economy. Now, we have some of the important figures in a presentation for you, and I think some of these figures may have been made for a slightly less intimate gathering than this is here today, but I hope that most of you can still read some of the numbers that we have on the wall. On a global level, Europe is a market leader in shipping, according to a recent study conducted by Oxford Economics. At the start of 2014, the European Union controlled 40% of the world gross tonnage and 39% of the world deadweight tonnage. Between the start of 2005 and the start of 2014, the European Union controlled fleet expanded by more than 70% in terms of both gross and deadweight tonnage. The number of vessels grew at a much lower rate, reflecting the trend towards larger units, which offer greater economies of scale. In terms of fleet size, Greece and Germany lead the table with the largest controlled fleets in Europe, equivalent to about 36% of the gross tonnage or 43% of the deadweight tonnage. Sorry, these were the numbers for Greece. For Germany, they account for 21%, respectively 19%. The European Union-controlled fleet is dominated by three types of vessels: container ships with 60%, multi-purpose vessels with 52% of gross tonnage, and tankers. Within the EU, the strongest growth between 2005 and 2014 was recorded amongst offshore vessels. And needless to say, this is also a segment of the industry that is characterized by a very high quality of service and personnel. The European Union's share of the world offshore fleet increased from 28% in 2005 to 37% in 2014. In 2012, and this is the year of reference, the European shipping is estimated to have generated and directly contributed 56 billion euros to the European GDP and generated tax revenues in the amount of 6 billion. Moreover, it employed 590,000 people directly. And indicative estimates suggest that there were approximately 38,000 students and cadets in the maritime academy type of training, an 11% increase from 2004. Shipping is also a high productivity industry, with each worker in the industry estimated to have generated about 88,000 euro as a contribution to GDP, significantly above the EU average, and interestingly enough, much higher than some of the industries that we always think are sort of the high-profile activities such as media or aviation. The shipping industry indirectly supported an estimated 59 billion contribution to GDP and 1.1 million jobs through its European supply chain in 2012. And the spending of wages by those employed in the shipping industry and its supply chain supported an estimated additional 30 billion of GDP and jobs for 550,000 people. The total economic impact of the industry is impressive. The sector generates 145 billion contribution to GDP and 41 billion in tax revenue, 2.3 million jobs. And I promise those were the numbers. There will not be as many numbers in the rest of what I have to say. But such positive results, both for shipping and the wider maritime cluster, I think need to be brought to the attention of the policymakers that took over the helm now at the European Commission and in the European Union. And let me share an anecdote with you. Before the new head of the Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker, was appointed head of the Commission, he issued a statement whereby he said that one of his priorities was to prevent a financial crisis as we had seen it in 2008. Because he felt that in such crisis only speculators and ship owners would profit from the situation. Now I think you must probably come from a landlocked country like Luxembourg to make this connection, but it also shows you that it is important to always introduce and in a way educate the people that run our political institutions with the nature of our industry. In ECSA, we have recently adopted a 5-point manifesto in which key priorities for our industry have been outlined. First of all, the first point is that EU shipping is an industry that is a truly global and highly mobile business in terms of labor and capital. It continues to face increasing fierce competition from shipping centers outside Europe, especially in Asia. The EU-approved state aid measures, and we just heard about tonnage checks also, have allowed the European controlled fleet and the number of European seafarers to grow. These measures are not privileges for a spoiled group of exotic entrepreneurs. They are vital to generate and create a level playing field on which European ship owners can successfully compete. The Oxford economic study I referred to earlier estimated that the economic impact of shipping would have been half as important if it had not been for these European-approved state aid measures. The continuation of EU maritime state aid guidelines is therefore essential in order to achieve and also maintain a global level playing field for our European shipping industry in competition with other countries outside Europe. Second, we should emphasize much more that shipping is by far the most energy efficient mode of transportation. It is also the first industrial sector with a globally binding regime that aims to reduce CO2 emissions. Further measures are developed by the International Maritime Organization, including a global system to monitor, report, and verify carbon emissions. Let me say, a subject that has been heavily and actively discussed over the past year. This is particularly important because shipping needs global rules, and European measures alone cannot work. I draw a parallel with the recent EU initiative to harmonize the charging plugs on mobile phones. By simply looking at your mobile phone, it will be quite obvious that you need to have a common standard across the world. And shipping does indeed need global and common standards, not only for the plugs on your mobile phones and the electric connections for your ships. Change comes about not only as a result of laws and regulations. Markets, in the end, are the most dynamic force to bring about efficiency. The rising fuel costs have been, in fact, the main driver to make shipping as energy efficient as possible. And even though we are now experiencing a phase of reduced bunker prices, I think we will stay in an environment where already the climate policies and the need to curb emissions will still continue the pressure for energy efficiency. Shipping presents the European Union with a unique opportunity to make its transport system more sustainable and achieve the CO2 goals through multimodality. This calls for a continued support of the EU's Road to Sea policy. And the integrated, adequate financial support to short sea shipping will allow for better performance in this field. Shipping indeed needs appropriate support mechanisms to be able to comply with technical retrofit demands set by environmental regulations. The existing TEN-T programs concentrate very much on infrastructure, but we must also concentrate on upgrading the fleet. And once again, EU regulations need to dovetail with global standards. Also, we should not forget that shipping is first, here we are a little quick on the screen. I'm not quite sure how we go back here. Here you have the manifesto again. Also, we should not forget that shipping is first and foremost a people business. Europe is blessed with a long-standing shipping tradition, and a unique pool of maritime talent. Currently, more than 38,000 students, as I mentioned, are studying in maritime academies in Europe. And by training these young people, ship owners invest heavily in the professionals of the future. Workers in the EU shipping sector are considerably more productive than on average, and I think it is an area of growth that we should foster as a maritime cluster, not just in the narrower sense of shipping alone. The seafaring profession, however, suffers from an image problem, which sometimes is reinforced through the ongoing practice of criminalizing seafarers in the event of maritime accidents. You cannot imagine that when an airline pilot is causing an accident at the airport, that he is immediately investigated for criminal action. To see a captain in handcuffs after there was an accident at sea is not a completely uncommon sight. And I think this is a comparison that should make us concerned. In addition, the increasing administrative workload put upon masters and officers proves to be a major disincentive. This is our third priority area, one on which ship owners and trade unions can work together. Looking at intra-European trade, we tend to take pride in the fact that 40% of intra-European trade is transported by sea. However, the internal market has not yet delivered its full potential for shipping. Administrative burdens continue to exist. Custom hurdles are still there and prevent the EU from being a truly common European maritime market. Despite all good intentions and promising projects, little progress has been made, and this is disappointing. Furthermore, despite several attempts to create a common EU framework for market access restrictions continue to exist in ports. Dock labor is a well-known example, which I'm sure you're also familiar with. Finally, we believe that the European Union should continue to be a champion of free global trade. The EU has over the years multiplied free trade agreements with some of its most important trade partners, and these efforts should be continued with other countries. As you know, the European Union is currently negotiating the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, known as TTIP. Unfortunately, restrictions on domestic cargoes, cabotage rules, still firmly exist in the United States. The results from Section 27 of what is known as the Jones Act is still very much valid. While it is true that restrictions on pure domestic cargoes may not necessarily be a barrier to international trade, the Jones Act does have implications for the delivery of international cargo. Today's reality of optimizing logistics operations, transport patterns, and increased ship sizes means that very often international cargo must be transshipped from one vessel to another, often on smaller vessels, in order to reach the end destination. The same goes for international relay of cargo, and I firmly believe it is in the interest of the European shipping industry to loosen up these restrictions. There is no reason why European companies should not have a bigger stake in US flagships than 25%, which is the present maximum level. There's also no reason why European-owned ships should not be active in the transportation of international bill of lading cargoes along the American coast. And there's no reason why hubs for international feeder services should not be in the US instead of Jamaica. In order to fully enjoy the benefits of free global trade, the European Union should furthermore maintain its leadership to eradicate piracy and armed robbery, two of the phenomena that plague some of the world's busiest shipping routes. And while there are still 46 seconds left for me, let me finally say a few words on a recent topic that I think we have all been confronted with over the past weeks and months: migrants at sea. Of course, Greece, due to its geographic positioning at the crossroads of two continents and in close proximity to many of today's troubled regions, is by no means a stranger to this phenomenon. Recent events highlight the growing refugee and migrant crisis in the Mediterranean. Ship owners do not shy away from their humanitarian obligation of assisting any person at sea faced with serious danger. It should, however, be noted that the shipping industry does not have the means nor the resources to tackle the root causes of this problem. And it makes me think that when I can read a full-page article in a German newspaper about how you can organize in a Turkish port a vessel to carry 1,000 refugees from Turkey to Italy, that there should not be ways and means of preventing this before the ship arrives on the shores of Italy. The European Union and the member states must find a solution to this European problem because it is an ever-deepening crisis. It should be understood that as in the case of maritime piracy, the shipping industry should not be the only ones that people rely on to execute tasks and undertake initiatives that should really be carried out by national governments and European institutions. Before closing now, and time is up as we can see, I would like to draw your attention to the fact that ECSA is organizing this year a European Shipping Week in Brussels, a week-long series of events to raise the profile of our industry with European decision makers, but also with other organizations that are in day-to-day contact with our industry. And I strongly encourage you to find out more about, sorry, I did not push the button, here it is. I strongly encourage you to find out more about our first European Shipping Week and our first event in this frame. It would be a pleasure to see as many as possible that are in this room participating in European Shipping Week and joining the discussion that we are going to have. As European ship owners, our home port is Europe, but our fleets trade to over 90% of their time outside Europe. We want to stay and remain in Europe. As your minister said, Greek shipping is to remain in Greece. European shipping has Europe as a home port, but we must have conditions that allow us to be successful outside Europe and earn our money for the benefit of our employees and our businesses outside the European frame. We must and want to be successfully global. Thank you very much for your time and your attention, and thank you indeed for the invitation to this very distinguished event. Thank you.